podcast. Sorry. My go. I'm not allowed to talk to you.
But I think you're awesome. And I would love an opportunity to do it. Just stand aside, I can't see Jamie. I would love an opportunity to do this with you guys at the right time, because we really, really, really care about each other. And that's what we're talking about here. We're talking about connection, not networking. So, not allowed to talk to you, but I...
At the very end, if there's time to say, has anyone got any questions? We have a mic.
Okay, to ask.
Just the audio, there'll be no camera on you, and we'll use the audio in the podcast. So if you try and keep the room as quiet as possible, the recording will be you, but Marcus and Kirsten both.
You got your phones off?
And qualified tutor.
You got your phones off?
Yeah, phones off.
John's leaving.
I'm very sorry, I have a meeting and not rather than disrupting you.
I appreciate that. Thanks, John. Take care. Okay.
Dealer's given us the thumbs up, so we can start. Kirsten, welcome.
Thank you for having me here.
This is the first relationships... Sorry, just move my chair in the middle of the thing. This is the first Relationships Matter podcast, and you and I are doing it together, because the relationship that we've built over the last few months is making a change in tutoring and using tutoring to make a change in our own lives. So let's start off by describing the friendship that you and I have, and then I'll ask you to introduce yourself, if that's all right. So Kirsten's been supporting one of my kids, is the most important thing, because one of my kids hasn't been at school for a while, struggling with anxiety, and the support that Kirsten and Gaia Learning has been providing has been making all the difference in my home, especially the ADHD parenting coaching. Even though my son doesn't have an ADHD diagnosis, we know what we're looking at. And so we've been proactive and we've been bringing the support that he needs. And I really, really appreciate the way you've shown up. So the rest of this conversation is going to be based on my understanding of what you offer as a mum, as well as somebody who is obsessed with the power of tutoring. So welcome, Kirsten, and thank you. I'm going to ask you please to introduce yourself, because you'll do it better than I will. Go ahead.
So my name is Kirsten Coptry. I'm the co-founder of Gaia Learning and Hybrid School. I set up Gaia Learning 4 years ago when I was in a similar position with my eldest who didn't fit into school. I retrained as a teacher, so I was working in Ernst & Young previously, took a career break, and then used a teacher training scholarship to leave the classroom in my NQT year and set up an alternative education platform that would provide and meet my son's needs, which weren't being met in school. And it's sort of grown from there. So now we are an international online school, the only one in the world that caters for children with neurodiverse challenges, especially around ADHD and autism. And that sort of happened incidentally because those were the families that we attracted, because we were providing a solution for them. And in fact, last year I had an adult ADHD diagnosis, so that was a bit of a shock for me to really realize that it had come from me and it was meeting my needs as an educator as much as the children that we were supporting.
We're going to come back to that, your needs as an educator, and how the modality, the delivery model of tutoring can suit the adult as well as the student. I think that's really interesting. So I have a series of questions that I'm going to be asking you, and my agenda is to get to know you better and to share who you are on this podcast as an opportunity to be authentic, to build relationship, and hopefully to invite people to reach out and connect with you and build relationship with you, because that's what we do on podcasts. So let's go. My first question to you is this: 21st century skills. We know that we need to be lifelong learners. We know that we need to be autodidacts because we don't even know what we don't know yet, and there is so much to keep up with right now. So my question to you is this: what are you learning at the moment, and crucially, how is it changing you?
So 4 years into the startup entrepreneur journey, I am learning just more recently to have fun. Something really resonated yesterday with Stephen Bartlett's presentation at BET, which was to lean in. What makes a difference is to really lean in. And the starting point of establishing Gaia Learning for me came out of a period of fear and struggle, leaving an abusive relationship, not having the right provision for my child, and you know what it's like to suffer through that.
And you don't know until you know.
Yeah. So I literally invested. I had no financial. I had no financial freedom whatsoever. So getting a £27,000 scholarship from the DFE to train as a secondary school geography teacher was my means to escape a relationship and set up an alternative. And I was frightened, and I was supported in leaving that actually by a wonderful team at a school who recognized the position that I was in. So I am eternally grateful for school as a safe space for children and adults to be seen and valued and connected with. It was the start of a freedom for me in that, and yet I left the classroom. And I now do run an online school from my home, and it reaches children all over the world and different religions, different countries. It also, even though I sort of thought I was a geography expert and very interested in different places and cultures, to be educating children in their own homes around the world. My prejudices that I didn't even realize I had have been challenged in every way. To be able to connect different children of ages and experiences and socioeconomic backgrounds together, I've been freed at a level that I had no idea there was capacity to experience. So
you broke through a ceiling that you didn't even know was there.
Yes, I think.
But I think it's really interesting. You just went full circle. You started with fun, and you came to learning and limitlessness. So for you, there's something about learning and joy.
Yeah, I think I always knew. I was very privileged actually to grow up in South Africa in one of the best private schools there. And Desmond Tutu was one of the governors there. And I was there at a period where South Africa was going through a fundamental shift in ideology and politics and all that. And I realized that education is like that Nelson Mandela says, the most powerful weapon we have to change the world. And no matter what experiences I then had afterwards, where I felt trapped and alone and unseen, and I knew that my education was a freedom, that where I could go anywhere in the world and I would be free, even if that was alone, that there is an importance to education, to knowledge, to an understanding of the world where it is freedom, and everybody, every single child, and women especially, I'm very passionate about that because we can be so easily trapped, especially those of us with neurodiversities that are more susceptible to being in coercive, controlling relationships, I think. And education is that freedom. So, but learning to learn and learning knowledge is one thing. It is essential. It is essential we understand our world and we understand each other and we learn those things. The education system, we don't need to throw it away. We do need to keep learning the knowledge. It's important. But we need to also recognize that not just for exams, we need to learn it so that we are financially free, that we are having fun, that we have all of those skills that you mentioned are things that I now put into practice every single day, which I think allows me to be an entrepreneur and to inspire my children. And that's the bit I'm trying to lean in and have more fun with and have more confidence with, because it's still a scary old world.
Yes, and at the presentation yesterday, so the first conversation at BET in the arena, one of the questions was about entrepreneurialism and how to get through the difficult bits. And the advice that was given was, it's like when you're 16 and you just want it to be over. But looking back as an adult, you know, it's the most fascinating, liberating, joyful time of life. It's hard. And unfortunately, we think that hard.
Like when you're 16, well, I've got a teenager now, and he says every day, he's like, Mum, my legs are sore, my muscles are sore. You know, growing is painful. It really is.
In all the ways. To you, but you and I have had a really powerful conversation in the past about when you're good at school, and then you are good at university, and you get a good job, you get used to people saying, well done, and telling you what to do next, and traveling through a track. And it sounds to me that in your story and in mine as well, there was a moment when you pulled yourself off that track and said, I'm not willing to participate in this prescribed path anymore. Will you tell us a bit about that?
Yeah, so I was undiagnosed with ADHD as a child and a teenager. I think a lot of girls are missed now in the education system because we don't recognize that daydreaming is a way that our brains are jumping around and climbing the walls. We have that misconception that ADHD is just for boys. And so I sat in classrooms, I didn't understand what they were telling me. I didn't follow all of that, but outside of the classroom, I would teach it to myself. And I did learn how to learn. I learned how to crack the patterns in the exam system. We're talking about this, what is it about GCSEs and exam papers? There's a formula and you can recognize the pattern, and I could do that. And so it was almost like being really surprised when I came out with straight A's and I couldn't remember what the information was, and I felt like a fraud, and how had I managed to do that? And I remember thinking that was the best day of my life, opening those results and being in the local newspaper and all that. But looking back, I realized it was one of the worst days, because you're measured by a system that you don't actually understand or fundamentally value. But my parents very much did, and I was a superstar. And so it's trying to recognize that model of education is ingrained so much in us, but at what cost? So looking back, that I was borderline anorexic, self-harming, not thriving, and yet I was a model student and a success of a system. So when I had my own children, and I can see, so I have 3 children, and my daughter as well has the same ADHD traits that I had, and yet I haven't pushed for a formal diagnosis for her because she's good and she doesn't climb the walls. And unlike my son, I don't have to worry that she's going to kill herself by jumping off a building every now and then, which literally,
not an exaggeration,
is I had ambulances and all sorts after my son, but I don't want their well-being to suffer. It's not worth it. Those aren't the skills that they need. And I was fortunate in having the chance to travel. I started my career in Australia, and when I got there, and I'm like, look, got this, I've got a first-class degree and all of these A's, and they're like, we don't do GCSEs, and I have no idea what a first is. We have numbers. And so I still had to start making the tea. And yet I had to prove myself in the, could I adapt? Could I be agile? Could I figure out what it was that we needed to do? And I worked in an IT media startup company. And so that, to be able to have the freedom and the trust that we talk about from an entrepreneur to say, well, have a go, see what you can do. And to use technology to cobble together a tech stack that allowed me to be way more efficient and productive and have more influence and make it look like I was so much bigger than I was, is still the same skills that we apply now to Gaia, which is run by a small, tight-knit, very special group of educators who believe in something very passionately, but it is facilitated and it is scaled with very clever tech. So I don't know if that answers any of those questions.
It does, and it takes me to a theme that I wanted to explore. There's two, of course, so I have to choose which direction to go in. But firstly, the difference between education and learning, because really you just described two schools that you went to. School, and then your first job, where you learned employability skills, where you learned how to step up and have a go, right? And, which is not what we're taught in school. In fact, we are penalized. We are disincentivized for having a go in school. Much as, you know, we talk about growth mindset in school, it is not embedded in the way that we structure our systems. So, of course, at the moment in the education space, we're focused on the accountability agenda. We're focused on what top-down regulation is doing to education and whether or not it's in the service of our young people and of the adults who are running the sector. So I'm really, really curious to hear about what, in fact, I can't think what the question is here. Do you want to riff on that? Go.
So we work with children who have, we have lots of different children, from ones who are electively home educated to children accessing our Cambridge International Curriculum from overseas, highly valued overseas, to children here in the UK who have been excluded from every other school in their local area. The council have no other resort for them. And because of that, because they're at their wit's end and they don't know what to do, they're like, all right, have a go with you, see what you can do. And of course, they pay us to provide maths and English and science to these children. But the way that we engage them and the success that we've had with them, and we've been piloting this one particular scheme for nearly 2 years now, and they keep sending the children, is because we start with, what do you want to do when you grow up? And these kids, they do have ambitions and they've got ideas about what they want to achieve. They might have EHCP plans, and just the backstories of these kids is just, but they want to thrive and they want to impress their parents just as much as, you know, I did at the time. So we tap into that and say, look, we're going to focus on this maths skill, but this is how we can apply it to your particular business. One kid I'm thinking of initially, he dreams of being a billionaire builder. And so but we look at how, but he's got it all planned out. And actually, even listening to Steve about it yesterday, what his four goals were about what he wanted to achieve: a six-pack, a girlfriend, and a fast car. That's the goal. And so we will teach him science of plastering and how to build an arch in maths. And actually, then I talk to him about how I'm promoting my business through social media and how I can be concise with that and how I'm using ChatGPT to do that. And he's interested, he's on the edge of his seat, and how can I do that? And so he might incidentally pass functional skills maths by accident, but I don't care about that. And you know what? Nor does the council. And every term we meet with the grannies or the head teachers and the head of education for that child, and they cannot believe the difference that we're making, because we're focusing on what that kid wants to do or what the future is for that child. mean, even my own son says to me, Mom, I'm worried, I'm stressed. What am I going to be when I grow up? What am I going to do? What am I doing now? This is a waste of time. I can't see the connection between where I'm going. And I'm still, like I said to you, and there's a balance to that, because I love learning. I am an academic. So you can't throw that away, but we do need to personalize it, take it at the child's own pace, share ideas across socioeconomic divides, and just give young people our time.
Oh, okay. So that takes me exactly where I wanted to go next. So you and I have been talking about how tech is going to give us back time. Could you explore that for me, please?
Yes, and I don't know why I feel emotional about it, because
I was wondering what the sigh was.
Because I fundamentally set up my business to support my own children. And I have my crux, and it is hard being an entrepreneur and the sacrifices you make about it. And whenever it is really, really hard, I come back to the thing of, I look at my 3 little people in front of me and I go, is this a benefit to them now, just them? Does it either help me feed them, clothe them, inspire them, or as much as I love teaching other kids, and one of yours I do tutor and coach, I can't teach my own. What is that with parenting? It's sometimes not, as a parent, you're not the best person to inspire and guide them always. So they do, and I feel like Gaia is the village that I created, that I needed to be able to support me in a huge time of crisis. I found my community that I needed my children to have. So that is always my question, but there is still a huge amount of parental guilt that I lay on myself daily, of how much time am I giving to grow the business and talk about a mission and support other children, and that I then don't have the time that I want with my own children. Again, bring up Stephen again, but he said something about,
we're on first name terms with Stephen Bartlett.
We want to be, I know. That accidental privilege. I've spent the week in London this week, which has been hugely hard on a number of levels, not just the fact that with ADHD I can't pack and organize my life ahead of time, but that I like working from home flexibly, because it allows me to be able to make sure my kids are at school and the lunch is packed and all that. But this week I left before they went to school. Now they do just walk across the road and it's fine, and my Ring doorbell pings me and I say goodbye to them and stuff, but I feel like I'm letting them down, or I'm not there, or that I want more time with them. And the ultimate goal, which we're at now, and it is exciting, is tech does enable more human time and more interaction. And I am finding pockets of that more now, where I am freed up of doing things that used to take me a long time. And it's the time, it's the doing nothing that I value and want to have more of with my children.
And the skill of doing nothing
is really hard, actually, when all you want to do is fidget.
I tell you what my secret is. My favorite thing is the school run, because we just sit in the car together and chat, and I know I'm going where I need to get to, but really that little bubble there is a space of nothing with the children.
And actually not looking at them, but driving
100%.
straight, and they
Much
just talk,
easier.
don't they?
I don't want to make you cry. Well, I do want to make you cry because, you know, it's just good photos. Somebody said to me once that you don't know when is the last time that you bathe your child.
Until you realize, gosh, that hasn't happened.
Yeah.
I still have moments where, and it is where I've been busier these days. My 9-year-old, I will just wake up and he's spooned in with me, and he does still do that, but there will be a time where actually that doesn't, and I don't boot him out now. It's just
Yeah, because you know to appreciate it. When my number 5 was born, I mean, what an amazing thing to be able to say, right? But from the minute she was born, I knew how quickly it was going to pass. And it changes your whole relationship. So this is what occurred to me before. You use this lovely phrase, tech stack, which sounds way impressive until you find out it's just how you use all the different apps together to do what you need them to do. So thank you for teaching me that. There's also a human stack. So the village that you've created around your children and that I've created around my children is the human stack that solves their needs also, because no, I can't be their only teacher. I can be one of their teachers. And you told me yesterday that one of your kids said that he was proud of you.
Well, it was the best way to find out, actually, because one of the guilt things was I missed parents' evening the day before yesterday. So his teacher phoned me and she said, I just want to tell you that he's really proud of you. He talks about the school that you've made and he says he's proud of you. And actually, that's it. That's enough. That's the measure of success. Because I think when you're building something, a tech stack, a platform, a tool, a school, whatever it is, it's like, when will I know that I've done it? When will I know that I've done, like, that I've got there? Is it 5 kids, 20 kids, 100 kids?
I'll tell you the answer. It's grandchildren. No, I'm serious. I tell you why. You know that you raised a healthy human when that human raises a healthy human. And in the same way, when your business is reflected back at you. So my kids and I have been building Qualified Tutor, you know, from the sofa for years now. And one of my 10-year-old perked up and said recently, do tutors have to have a qualification? And my 16-year-old looked at him and said, no, that's what we're doing. And it was our story that had gone in and come out of, which is, of course, exactly how you check for understanding. That's exactly assessment for learning. So we had this beautiful conversation this morning, all of us in the room here, about being more human and how you can take any good person and turn them into a good tutor. Because as long as they know how to relate, you can teach them the pedagogy. But are we taught how to be good humans? Where on the current curriculum, where in our current structures for raising children, is how to be a good human? I've gotten completely off piste, but go for it.
Well, that is where we look at curriculum and we look at what are we teaching? And we were one of the first schools in the world to go through the Cambridge accreditation process, so we can offer the Cambridge International curriculum online, which is brilliant because it is culturally sensitive and it is broad and it's global, and that's wonderful. It provides a nice safety net that no matter where parents are at in the journey, that they come to us, and whether they go back into education, they can do that. But it's those other skills. It's the thing that I wish I'd learned more about. What does a good relationship look like? What does financial security look like for a woman? What do you need to know before you get married? And that is so fundamentally important that we teach our boys and our girls from a very, very young age. So yeah, being able to provide that space, whether it's in a curriculum, because I think we're at a really interesting period of time of change and understanding that even the concept of tutoring and the concept of school that can sit online, that parents will still pay for supplementary education that is maths and English support because they do want to hedge their bets on the exams, but they also know that they've come to us because there's a crisis in well-being and understanding and all of that. So, but then once they're in there, recognize, just like the local authorities do, that that is the most fundamentally important part of education, and the rest is incidental. But I think it's something as well that we need to be brave enough to co-create with our young people and with the demands that parents have as we go forwards, because they are the ones that are going to be needing to thrive in the future.
So you and I have spoken about how native children are to tech and how very often when you explore a new platform, you give them the run of it and tell them how to let them show you how to work the thing, right? And we've spoken about that with ChatGPT, that there are skills to learn how to interact with AI.
You never said manipulate. It's true.
Did I?
Yeah.
Is it?
Yeah.
Because we
do need to use it. We need to be above it. We need to be in control of understanding how we can manipulate that to allow us to be more human. But it comes back to that tech stack. It is literally that. There is no one solution to, this is what a perfect online school looks like. Look, we've got it. And so my co-founder, Kate Carney, and I established a hybrid school as our tech platform to support other schools who are looking to extend their reach in the online space in their local geographies. And we recognize that because, well, these inquiries just kind of started coming to us from schools saying, we like what you're doing, but we need this for our community. And can you white label this stack that you've got? And it is so important that the tech remains personalized, remains adaptable, can keep on providing both for the school or the child, that we keep on evolving it. There isn't we cannot stand still in the space and go, yeah, now we based it because we used that. Because it is moving so incredibly fast, and the kids and the teachers and the parents are demanding that it does. It needs to be easy. My thing, and this probably comes back to the ADHD thing, I don't like printing out worksheets. I don't like having 100 tabs open. It's the reason we put school on an app, that it's one app. Everything is integrated, be that the classroom technology, the contents that we use, the access to the teacher, the discussion forum to the success coordinator. You don't have to leave that safe space. And that's from a cybersecurity point of view. That's from an online digital health and safety point of view for the kids. And we have canned content, curriculum, but every child that comes to us, they also have a personal space where what works for them is integrated in. So while it was overwhelming to be at BET yesterday and see the huge number of new EdTech platforms coming about, it's great because it will suit one of the kids and one of the families.
So you're not looking for a one-size-all solution?
Absolutely not.
Because that's exactly what we've just escaped from. Mm-hmm. You're going to take all these good stuff and you're going to put them together to make the right salad for each child.
Yes, but what that needs is a very, very clever human,
wise
educator who can and is humble and agile enough to adapt, and is also totally current to know what's out there, what support can I use for this child, and also to do it really quickly, because you cannot lose the engagement of that child or that family, which is challenging.
So I'm going to pause us here, because talking with you is awesome. And I'm going to ask you one more question just to tie us up. We spoke at the beginning about being an autodidact and learning yourself, for yourself, by yourself. Now I want to ask you about who you've learned from and why, who you'd like to thank for the learning that they've helped you with.
So I would like to thank Kate, my co-founder and business partner. She's my Odette, like you have, really. Because like you had when you had your vision of qualified tutor and what it needed to be in the community it needed to be, you needed somebody to translate that to make it visible and as ambitious as you want it to be. And Kate did that for me. She has given me a confidence actually in what we've been doing for 4 years.
Yes.
It's not that, oh, this is an idea, education to change, and complaining about, oh, it's just not right for my kid. We've been living, breathing this, doing it as a parent, as a teacher, as a tutor, as a like in all of those roles. And what Kate does, she just she talks, if any of you follow Gaia on LinkedIn, you will see the relentless marketing and the way she talks and shares what we are experiencing on a day-to-day basis. And we attend events together, and she networks and she talks and she shares the story. And I think I have been scared to do that. She made me talk a couple of years ago and do like Facebook lives and LinkedIn lives and do things, and I cringe and I hate it, and I don't, even things like this, I was terrified to talk.
Well, you've done really badly. You should be ashamed of your performance today.
Well, there's my rejection sensitive dysphoria coming out all over. But we need to talk, because otherwise parents don't know that there are alternatives. We don't need to there are alternatives. We don't need to keep complaining, and we do need to keep shouting about the way that it can work and the way that we can adapt it for other kids and the success stories that we've had, because there are huge numbers, and so they do make you want to cry, but we have to share that. So now I do that more, and so I talk to people more.
Thank you, Kate. Thank you, Kate, for teaching Kirsten to talk
to people.
What a beautiful thing. So to finish off, I want to thank you, because you gave me an honest conversation there. And what I hope comes out of it is more relationship between us, between the people that you're trying to serve, and hopefully to inspire other people to build up relationship and connection to really lead change in our space. Thank you for your time.
Thank you for having me.
I know we're doing good when Julian's looking at the screen down. Woo! He was doing a lot of that.
Leg stretch. Who's coming next?
Yeah. Freya and Helen. So we've got Oxford University Press and Central Tech.
Okay, let's go. So, hello. Before we start the podcast, I actually want Priya and Helen to know who's in the room, because this is an event about connection and relationship. It's not an event about talking at people, and we have glorious people in this room. So, I'm going to start with Kirsten. I'm going to end with Jamie. Andrea, you're involved. So, I'm going to ask you please to just give us a 1-minute potted introduction to yourself. Go.
I'm Kirsten. I am the co-founder of Gaia Learning. We're the only online school dedicated to kids with additional needs, especially ADHD and autism. And last year we also co-founded Hybrid School, and we basically white label and brand a version of our tech stack for schools to extend their reach in their geographies around the UK. And we've got a team of specialized tutors and educators that know how to operate that tech stack and engage with those kids. So we can support other schools that don't have those expertise to operate those things online.
And in addition to being first QT member,
Gold back.
Kirsten also supports kids and has really been making a difference in my life. So the real deal.
Amazing.
Carl, please will you introduce yourself?
Hi, I'm Carl. I'm principal of a small tutorial college in Oxford, and I run a global tuition team. We have centres in Dubai, Abu Dhabi, Monaco, Moscow recently, London, and Oxford. And we're just setting up our own online school, which will launch in September, with the kind of core premise being re-engaging a kind of apathetic youth with their education. We've worked with online schools for years, and we've partnered with a lot of the big players in online schooling, and yeah, we've got a lot of support for what we're doing, and it's super exciting.
Fantastic, thank you, Carl. Stephen, go ahead.
My name's Stephen Wellborn. I'm a research director working at the National Foundation for Educational Research. Our mission is basically to use research to find out what works and to help promote good practice that way. Previous to that, I was a research manager at an EdTech company called Sparks, and before that, I was a computational neuroscientist at Manchester University.
Yeah, hi there. I'm Imran, and I'm an ambassador for Pencil Spaces here, where I lead product. Pencil Spaces is a virtual classroom for educators, and I think how I spend 90% of my time is essentially talking to tutors and educators around the world, understanding some of the challenges that they go through when sort of running sort of tutoring sessions online, or even just running their tutoring business online. And my job is to essentially take a lot of those challenges and convert those into products and solutions that they can end up using to simplify that part of their life.
Thank you, Imran. Crystal, go ahead.
Hi, I'm Crystal Weaver. I run Crystal Clear ESL. We are a web-based curriculum company for English language teachers and hopefully beyond. And I'm really passionate about giving online teachers and academies the tools that they need to succeed in freelancing and to, like Qualified Tutor, raise the standard of online English teaching.
Thank you. Jamie, go for it.
Hi, I'm Jamie. I spent nearly 20 years in one of the biggest state schools in London, first as an educator, then possibly COO. I also have a tutoring business on the side. For the last couple of years, I've been supporting school leadership, development, finance, operations, and HR, as well as working to open a new school, which we opened a year and a half ago for young people with social, emotional, mental health, EDSA, off the back of an existing hospital group for the most severe eating disorders in the country. We're now looking at the next stage in terms of how we launch the tuition centre, in terms of our online and hybrid provision, as well as other EdTech related stuff.
Awesome. Thank you. Andy, go ahead.
Hi, I'm Andrea. I'm the market manager of Century Tech. I work with Gaia. Previous to that, I actually worked at Tutor, so I'm very familiar with you guys. Yeah.
Andrea, did we meet there? Your hair was blonder.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. So I don't think we actually met, but we exchanged a few emails.
Yeah.
So previous Tutor, and then moved to Century Tech.
Love what you did there. Ethan, go for it.
Hi, I'm Ethan, and together with Jamie, I've worked for the past couple of years helping set up that school for children with SEMH, bipolar autism, anxiety, depression, and now we're kind of working towards how we can apply a lot of the lessons that we've learned in that context to firstly a tutoring centre, and then also to a sort of online learning platform, much like what's being done with Gaia learning.
Fantastic. Thank you. And I really appreciate that you mentioned back to Kirsten, because we've come full circle, and what you've shown me is that the people in the room this morning have got to know each other. And that's what we showed up to do today. So I really appreciate that. You are in good company here, and we're really, really glad to have you. Thank you. May I start now? Thank you. Okay, so welcome to the second episode of Relationship Matters, the new QT podcast. we decided to launch a podcast about relationship in a time of EdTech and AI. Because we know that the thing that will continue to differentiate humans in a time of technology is relationship. Relationship is the basis of learning, and trust is the basis of relationship. So the conversation that we're going to have today is going to be technical, and I'm going to give you plenty of space to talk to me about OUP, about Bond, about Century, and about the collaboration between you. But I'm going to ask you to show up as humans with your whole self today, please. So tell us what's hard as well as what's fabulous, because that's how we're really going to be inspired by you. I'm going to ask you to introduce yourselves because it is impossible to introduce people effectively without sounding like an absolute fangirl, which I am. So I'm going to hand over to ask you to do that. The way that we show up in Qualified Tutor, our culture is be curious, be generous, and be reflective. So that's the way that we're going to run this conversation. Priya, go ahead, please introduce yourself.
Sure, well, thanks so much for having me. I always turn up as the whole human, which I think is really, really important. And I think also when you're leading an organisation and you're trying to break barriers and you're innovating, the most important sort of trait of a good leader is actually authenticity and integrity. And I know that when I met you just recently, we talked about that, and I think that that's really, really important when you're on stage as well. I think there's no point trying to pretend to be someone. I think it's really, really important to give, you know, the good, the bad, and the ugly, if you like, of whatever it is the topic you're speaking about. So just to introduce myself, I'm Priya Lakhani. I'm the founder and chief executive officer of Century Tech. We have built over the last decade, I dye my hair every 4 weeks, just so you know, because it's been a journey. We have built a proprietary AI and artificially intelligent platform that blends machine learning, deep learning. I say that because engineers constantly argue about what AI actually is, but anyway, it's a blend of artificial intelligence technology with neuroscientific theory, and essentially it hosts a curriculum or courseware on it, and it adapts and personalises for students, and the idea is to solve the one-size-fits-all delivery and try and personalise. But it's only half the picture. It provides incredible data insights. And so when we want to empower our educators, empower our tutors, empower our parents, empower the students themselves and take agency in learning, it does that in an unrivaled way. And so we built that over the last decade. I sit on the UK government's AI Council. I have been advising as an independent advisor government for now 15 odd years, you know, from the coalition government to now, both as sort of non-exec director, but also just sort of of a department, but also sort of sitting in various advisory boards. Very recently, you want to talk about HI and AI, human intelligence and artificial intelligence. I was the person who worked on Sir Patrick Valance's review of regulation when it comes to artificial intelligence, which is an incredibly important piece of work over the last 6 months. And then also, I founded the Institute for Ethical AI in Education with Sir Anthony Selden, Professor Rose Luckin, chaired by Lord Tim Clement-Jones, because we felt that if we're pushing the boundaries, we're a first mover, building the gold standard of AI in education, then if we sign up to the gold standard, everyone else will have to. And so that's exactly why we did it. It was an independent council, just so you know. I didn't have much of a say of what went into the framework afterwards, which is exactly how it should be. But Century would sign up to it no matter what, and so did that as well.
Well, just to reflect that back to you for a second, that proactiveness is exactly what I've seen in the way that Century's reached out to work with Qualified Tutor, because that sort of stepping forward is leadership, isn't it? So that sort of brings us full circle.
It's relationships, it's working. Look, there's a lot of people, and I definitely want, I want to stop this introduction in a second so we can all be part of this conversation, but just is really, really importantly, and this is actually why we work together, which is brilliant. I think there are lots of people that get into business and they want to own something, and they look at the total addressable market and they do the business case to get the investors, and it's all super exciting. In education, it's the second largest sector in the world. It's arguably the most important sector in the world. If you want to be social impact driven and you want to move the dial, it's all about collaboration. You're not going to be able to do it on your own. And stop trying to be an expert in everything, because education is not just about academic qualifications, it's about so much more. So anyway, that's why we reached out. And to give my whole self, I'm a mother of 2 children, I'm a wife, I've got my friends and family, all important to me. But with Sensory, it's, you know, every single day, it's what we're building. Can we look in the mirror at the end of the day and say, we're moving the dial in a positive way? And that's essentially how I try my best to run things.
Beautiful. Go ahead, Helen.
Perfect intro. How do I follow that?
Thank you.
So thank you so much for inviting Bond and OUP to be here. Priya and I will always enjoy sitting next to each other. Plenty to talk about and lots of exciting things that we're working on. So my name's Helen Freeman and I'm Director at Oxford University Press of Early Childhood and Home Education. Quite a long title. But what's really sitting behind that, and not just at OUP, but actually my entire self, authentic self, and my entire career is what really drives me is impacting children, young people and learners. We're a mission-driven organisation at OUP. We put that mission first, which is to impact or positively impact the lives of learners, whatever their social setting, whatever their needs. It's about understanding what learners need, when they need it, and that's a real driver. I'm very proud to be the lead on Bond, our Bond brand, which is almost 60 years old. So we're not new to helping learners. And over that period of time, inevitably, we've had to change and adapt. And I think that's what our working together is really about. It's making sure that we've really stayed in touch with what learners need first, and then that alters what the product mix is, what's in print, what's in digital, and just keeping really, really connected to that. I'm also a mum, and I'm a wife. And interestingly, I'm the mum of twins. Now they're quite grown up now. But if you ever need a reminder of how individual each learner is, having twins is the perfect reminder, because yes, they're twins, born at the same time, same experiences, but radically different. So I experienced that as a mother, as a parent, that we needed to adapt to what each of them needed to have a rich and fulfilling childhood and learning experience. So.
Yes, just yes. So I will complete the circle then. So I launched Qualified Tutor out of a background in school leadership, and my goal was to provide leadership to tutors because nobody was. And I'm a mum. I have a ridiculous number of children. I have 2 girls and 3 boys. Ranging in age from 17 to 7, which is why I'm here, because it's much easier here than at home right now. And yes, I'm a wife, and yes, I'm building a business with some awesome people around me. And so I think there's chemistry between you, isn't there? And that's a really, really yummy place to start. So tell me about the collaboration, the partnership between Bond and Sensory, but also this piece about heritage, legacy. Bond is this old brand, and Sensory is really the first mover in this really new space. So it's almost like you're, I think my kids use the phrase OG. It's like you're both. I know, right? So tell me about this sort of old, new approach with relationship at the center.
Can I start with one thing?
Go for it.
This took time. And I think that's really important. This was not here's an AI company, here's a publisher, that is not how this went. My children were preparing for various schools, and I did one key thing that was very different to their daily lives in school. I live near a Waterstones. I popped to Waterstones and I bought Bond books. Okay, that is how this started. As a mother, as a parent, I've not said anything about my background, but various bits of experience in my life, but I thought, right, I know what to do. They do need to be prepared. I think it's absolutely crazy for people to be out there saying that parents don't need to prepare their kids for these sorts of things. The children aren't ready to take a test, and selective entrance exists, and grammar school entrance exists, and schools that are doing that are doing it for various reasons, but one of the key reasons is that they feel better in control of maybe a range of abilities. There's all sorts of reasons, but that's not our job. But the point is what did I do? I went and I bought Bond books. There was one brand that I bought for my kids time and time again, and it was Bond. So it started there, and this was years ago.
Wait. Did you not use Bond when you were a kid?
Probably.
I did.
I probably did actually.
Yeah.
I think I've forgotten that bit.
There you go.
And that might be. We did some introductions in this room earlier, and just so you know, ADHD, but figured that out in my late 30s. And so there's people in this room during this podcast who are absolutely wonderful, doing really important work, who focus on very, very important areas. So yeah, probably just forgot that. I'm maybe a sign of my age rather than anything else. But anyway, let's move on swiftly to talk about that's what I did. So I went and I'd founded Century, and I remember them studying and using these fabulous questions. Now, the schools that my kids got into, the competitive nature of those schools, the occasional place that one of my kids got into, where I even said to her, it's highly unlikely. The only preparation that we gave to them actually was Bond books. Look, I didn't organise a tutor, and I didn't organise a tutor for a very specific reason. It's a little bit niche, and we're happy to talk about it, but I'll be very honest about it. I was adamant actually not to, and it's not because I didn't want to, it's because of a community reason. And again, I can talk about it. But I said, you're going to get Bond books. And it did prepare them. The quality of the questions, and I could see, because of what I do for a living, I'm very good at being able to see, okay, what is this? You know, is it just a book that's been put together by a bunch of freelancers? No, it was the quality of the assessment. So I met with Oxford University Press years ago, and we started having meetings. And before Helen takes this over, the point is it took years, and it took years because we wanted to do it right. Century didn't want to say we're doing X, Y, and Z without being able to do it absolutely well and properly. I think I met them before we actually started having schools subscribe to the system. It was a long, long time ago. And they were very keen, and they wanted to maintain that integrity in the assessment. And so it was integrity, and it was maintaining that, because at the end of the day, what was the common thread was we all cared about the impact. We cared about, is it accessible? How can we ensure that people can afford this? You know, if you're doing grammar school entrance, for example, and you live in a certain area, how can you ensure that you have access? And it was about maintaining the integrity in both what we're able to build and then combining forces. So I did want to start with that, because a lot of partnerships that sometimes happen out of a business opportunity. And I can just tell you right now, of course it's a business opportunity, but that is not the premise as to how which is why there's chemistry, because I love OUP, and I love the people behind it, and the amount of respect that the 120 people at Century have for the people at AUP is just, it's indescribable. There aren't words to talk about them adequately in this podcast and the 45 minutes that we have. But anyway.
Likewise. So in OUP town, the other side of the story was...
Over in Oxford.
in Oxford, I received an email from a really excited member of our digital team, whose role at the time was looking at the EdTech landscape and who's out there and what was happening. And that person's role was sort of spotting things and coming and saying, have you seen this? Have a look at this.
That's a fun role.
It's a lovely role, yeah. So I got an email that said, have you seen this? Do you want to look at it? And I had a look, and you know, it went to quite a broad group of people. And myself and one colleague called Michelle Williams, who she's still with our team. She's actually working across lots of other of our areas of our portfolio. But she and I had a quick look at the Century platform, and the moment we saw even just a glimpse, we were straight away, we've got to have a demo. Can we get on a call? You know, how can we set up a meeting? And I think there was a call before that I wasn't on.
Yeah,
and
there were
somehow,
meetings. There
were lots of meetings, and I wasn't there. And I got invited and sort of said, can we set something up? And they said, we've done that, you know, you weren't there. And I said, no, but can you set something else up? And I ended up on a call with Priya, which, you know, aside from anything else, was just really inspirational, because I could see straight away this wasn't only a whizzy, exciting, clever, sophisticated, impactful piece of technology, but I could see it was all those things, but with purpose, not just for all the bells and whistles for the sake of it. With lots of tech companies can make really cool things, but, you know, is it something that's going to make an impact? So I went on that first demo. I think I probably asked for about 3,000 more demos, because every time we looked at the platform, we kept thinking back to, we have this incredible home learning brand that has been around for so long and does what it does so well. And immediately, I mean, we have a digital product, but it's fair to say it was time for us to really embrace all that technology could bring to that learning brand, 11+ brand. So it did take time, and everything that Priya said about, yes, it's taken a long time to get here, and it has definitely been, it's a cliche to say it's been a journey. It really was a journey, and we went down a few kind of cul-de-sacs.
But it was right, because it was all about how do we impact the learner, how do we help the parent, and so there was a lot more thought behind, oh, let's just mash these things together, and actually that's what you see today, because the way in which we put it together was, it was all the stakeholders that we spoke to. We were piloting it and testing the idea with stakeholders. So, you know, it wasn't just, oh, let's do this and take it out. It was, what will they think? How will they react? Will it benefit them? And so it's working in that agile approach, but with two brands behind it. And then obviously, and then ISEB got involved, because they too said, look, we want this to be more accessible. We want parents and children to feel like, you know, very confident. And so that it just became a massive sort of a beast of a partnership. But what's wonderful is that everyone came to it with, and you know, if you speak to our chief education officer, who's absolutely brilliant. I mean, this is public, and I'm saying this about Tom now.
And he's really tall.
So he's ego. Yeah, I'm sure Tom, if you're listening. Yeah, keep this on record and keep playing it. Tom and I had this. It's brilliant. He's absolutely really funny. Wonderful. He's brilliant. Tom won't do anything. He's a former department head. He's a former assistant principal. He won't do anything without thinking how it makes an impact for our online schools that we support, for tutors that we support, we support so many other companies in what they do. Century is the back end of our AI is used in lots of other systems, which we're very, very happy to do. But even he would sit down and say, right, how is this going to impact the learner? So it was all worth it.
So I think now that you've told me about the roots, tell me about the branches. So you've had this purpose-driven collaboration that's built on mutual respect. And I think this sort of seeing value in each other, right? That I love that person, that sort of seeing that joy. So what is the student and the parent and the school and the tutor going to experience from this collaboration?
Well, from a bond point of view, whether that's in print or whether it's in digital form, this is a brand that is old, to use your word, but it's definitely...
I think I used heritage.
Heritage.
Yeah,
okay.
I wouldn't say old. That's
old.
Not nice.
Well, no, but with age,
my kids call me old all the time.
And experience, and I think the origin of Bond was actually a mother, a school leader, a teacher, Moira Bond, who was working with students and thinking how could she help them achieve their potential, be their best selves. How could she help them? What was the best thing she could do? And one of the things she did was she started to write questions on strips of paper, and she would, in a sort of 60 years ago kind of way, gamify it and hand out these strips of paper to students and made it playful, added a challenge, and these, you know, there was a sense of random. You didn't know, the student didn't know which question they were going to get. So that's still at the essence of Bond. It's about challenge, a love of learning, a sense of surprise, but seeing it in a joyful way rather than something intimidating. And that's where it started. And after all those strips of paper, when you have enough of those strips of paper, you realise you've got something that's really impactful and you can build it. It went into books, and here we are today. And that same approach is really at the heart of what's in a digital platform, because the essence of how you impact and help prepare a student in every sense of the word to be able to sit a test and to enjoy it and to embrace it and feel the excitement of your brain firing off thinking. So that's still at the heart.
Can I tell you something I learned from Bond? When I was a primary school teacher, I was an absolute disaster. I was terrible in the classroom because I used to say ridiculous things like, shake your pencil and see what comes out. And that's just how I learned. And that was the Bond training of, it's in there. All you have to do is bring it out.
That's not ridiculous, because I mean,
oh, the kids thought I was awful.
No. Well, I like that. I'm going to start shaking my pencil. So it is about that sort of, how can you turn something that is potentially challenging or stressful, or this sort of gate that you've got to get through, into something that feels much more empowering, and the learner can own and be part of that. And I mean, it's so fulfilling to do well at something, or feel that you've done your best at something,
which is so much more interesting than I'm really interested in the accountability agenda at the moment. And not only because what's been happening with Ofsted and school leadership, but also because regulation has to be meaningful, and it has to create a race to the top.
Well, I mean, even before going now, on the experience side, just to draw out something that Hannah said that's so important. So the feedback that we were getting when we were asking children and parents was that when they are preparing for these let's just be honest here, this is a highly stressful environment, okay? And all the tutors who are listening to this know that. The parents that are listening will say, yes, it's not a great period of life when you've got your eye on this particular school, it's your dream school, you go on the tour, you get told that there'll be 1,000 applicants and there are only 70 or 80 places, and your child's looking at you and smiling, mummy, daddy, I want to go here, I love it, I love the playground. And you know, you're working yourself, some of you, not all of them, but back from Oxbridge going, how do I get there? Right, what's the route since your child was a fetus? Let's be really, really honest. This is a stressful environment. It's high stakes. Every parent wants the best for their child. This is where this starts, okay? This starts from a highly maternal, paternal place. It's primal. I want the best.
She's gone full on tiger, mum.
Let's do it.
She has.
I want the best for my child. And that is how our community, our members, our stakeholders are thinking. So when they're thinking this and they feel they have mapped out for their child this route, they go to Bond, they go to these providers, they go to you, tutors, the members in your organisation, and say, help. Now, when you are given questions and only questions, that's preparing you. But when you don't have access all the time, right, to a tutor, or when a tutor is tutoring you, but they get an hour a week, 2 hours a week, right, and you're giving them work to do and you're going back, think about how efficient it is to make timely, targeted interventions. What do you have to do? You have to take the Bond book, you have to mark it, you have to see, and then you have to understand why they got something wrong. And then you have to teach them the thing that fixes why they got it wrong. Then you ask for the experience, right? So we got together and said, what's interesting is that if you use this technology, if you use AI that learns by itself, there's a key difference between true AI technology and an adaptive system that's human rules-based. If we take all of Bond's assets and questions, you know, whichever ones they want to put on this digital platform, but with it, we couple learning content, and not learning content created by freelancers, learning content created by Century's army of teachers, qualified teachers. And if you then do a Bond question and the machine can work out, well, you don't understand this particular question, or you're not figuring this out because actually you don't understand this thing over here. And it could be your literacy is affecting your numeracy, because this is what teachers and tutors are doing all day, every day. Right? If we can do that And then the machine, the technology will say, okay, here's a little bit of a lesson for you to watch before you do the next bond questions. And at the same time, you're giving the parents and you're giving the tutors the information. So when you've got the 1 hour, it's targeted, it's accurate. You are precision sorting things out. So you can move the dial on that child's impact. You can take their scores up far quicker and far more efficiently. And by the way, every sector in the world is doing this using AI. It was just education was lagging behind. This is not rocket science. If you can combine
It's more
that,
important than rocket science.
it's far more important, right? It is important. Education affects healthcare, right? We all know that. So if we could combine forces and offer that experience, student log in, spend 20 minutes on this platform. What you're doing is you're getting their assets, their carefully thought out assets that they are adapting over time, you know, and frankly, they align it to, listen, let's be straight, they align this to not only the 11 plus, the Ken, the GL Cat 4, the ISCB, right? Bond's entire suites, just think about that. And everything's tailored and tweaked, and they spend time in investing that. Then with the learning content, with a machine that's able to learn how you're learning and figure out where the gaps are, then the other half of the story, providing that data to all the tutors, providing that data to the parents. So parents just log in and see how their child's doing, and it gives you big data analytics recommendations. And now these are all, what's interesting is that these are not just about the child's learning. Every recommendation on the system is there because it's learned from the history of students' mouse movements on the system. And if you think about it, and if you think about GCSEs, they're standardised.
Anybody else's mind being blown here?
Right? So the thing is, it's not that, if I found a century, it's not that clever. I mean, it's clever, the people who built it are clever, the team are clever. I'm just sitting here thinking the idea is kind of obvious, right? And so
simple, not obvious.
It's a simple idea, but it's a simple idea. And so the experience is child logs in, learns. Child logs in, gets challenged. Child logs in, and this is the bit that Helen said that's beautiful, the empowerment. What happens when you don't understand something? You know, what happens when you normally don't understand something and you're not a teacher? Do you go to the chapter before? Do you go to the chapters, 3 chapters before in a textbook or on a digital rules-based one-size-fits-all maths app? What do you do?
I go to the
Where'd you go? Do you go and ask mum and dad? Do you know what chunking is? Do you know what bus stop method is? Because I know long division and things like that, but do you know all of these things? Do you know the methodology? Do you know the pedagogy behind that? They do.
Like, no.
But the interesting thing is they do, the teachers do. So what do you do? And this was the big piece of feedback. They were saying it's demotivating, right? Kids lose confidence, parents lose confidence in this highly stressful situation. So what happened was the experience is, why don't you now log into this system, right? We're going to make it, I mean, there are some systems out there at like 80, whatever pounds. We made it so that, look, it can be accessible. We tested the market. We said, how do we do this together? But it can't be that much because there are parents that simply can't afford that, right? And so you log in, you learn, it adapts. The data is there for the parent, for the tutor. And then now spend your 1 hour tutoring session with that child. Spend the 1 hour tutoring session with a child showing the parent you already know what to do. You already know where to focus. And that's where the human to human interaction, the human intelligence cannot be replaced. You figure out, you get the data, you don't need to do anything. The data's there, and in fact, the analysis is there. You close the laptops, you close the machines, you sit with the child, whether it's online, right? Whether it's that blended learning environment from some of the online schools in the room, whether it's the one-to-one, it's the face-to-face, you're sat, you know, in the other room in someone's house at your house, and you say, right, I'm going to explain this to you. And imagine how that child feels walking out. Whereas you could...
They feel helped.
Yeah, what you could do...
That's what they feel.
Can I give you the alternative?
No.
Let me give you the alternative, because that's what everyone's mostly doing, is give them the test, look at the answer, figure out what's going on with precision. That sometimes it's difficult. We're humans, okay? Try and say, well, why did you do that? And then get the child to answer that question. Right? And then, because this is what they do, and the thing is, they're amazing. This is the thing, is this entire community of educators, tutors, parents who help, they're amazing. But all I would say is, why are we making them do that and not arming them with the tools to empower them?
Absolutely right.
So that they can do their jobs quicker and better. And that is the purpose of this partnership, was we got together and said, let's supercharge our teachers, let's supercharge our tutors, let's supercharge our parents, let's give agency to the child. The child can actually see, I know what's happening. And in fact, it's telling me where I need help. Child can go to parent now and say, Mum, Dad, the guardian, I need some extra help. Look, let me find you a tutor if I can't help you myself. And that was the vision. And that's why it took long, because we had to figure out the best way to combine the two, didn't we, to make this the reality. And last Tuesday, I mean,
It
what was
happened.
last Tuesday?
I know.
It launched.
We launched.
Oh,
But what we want to do, and we discussed this at length actually, so I personally, and I know ISCB, the CEO of ISCB, another Julia, by the way, fantastic, is brilliant. Helen and the team are brilliant. We got together, and I think we've been inundated by tutors, just so you know, right? Because obviously the news went through last week. It was in several parts of the media, and people have said, look, how can we work with you? Now, there are a lot of tutors out there, and actually you have tutors that have been doing it for a long time. We've got a gentleman in the room who has got so much experience. You know, kids are lucky to spend time with you, and some of the organisations in the room. But, you know, there are also children at 16, 17 who will tutor their neighbours, their siblings and things like that, and earn pocket money. And that's all wonderful, by the way. That's a fantastic community. The thing is that for us, we need to figure out how to work with the organisations. So what we will do is, and we love qualified tutors, we love the idea that they get support, because actually it's a profession. I think this is the thing that people really misunderstand about tutors, is that is a profession. And hopefully, by the way, Julia, you know, during COVID, it was the world's largest EdTech experiment, as well as sort of homeschooling.
That's right.
Hopefully, communities and society really respect teachers and tutors far more, understanding now that when they try to homeschool their children, actually it's very, very difficult to do. It is a science as well as an art, so it is a profession. Tutoring is a profession. And because you are essentially, you know, in our eyes, it's the members' body, it's the trade body, it represents you, and you get your CPD, and everybody needs to invest in their own professional development. We are now working with you, which is wonderful, for members to receive you know, benefits from this partnership and to actually join this partnership through you. But that's what we're going to do initially. So what I would say is, if there are tutors who are listening, and we're obviously going to get back to the people that got in touch with us, who've been inundated, is actually, is that okay? But just to point them through you, because that way they're getting all the support through your organisation. We're able to provide some benefits to them, which we can announce soon. Having, you know, if we can agree with you as quickly as possible, then that would be wonderful. And we can route them through you, because then they get that entire experience. And I think that's what how we'd like to go about it as well. Because as I said, it's about collaboration, it's about partnership. And you know, we're here to partner with the tutors. I didn't know I'd get that response.
Thank you.
Yeah.
There is one more question I have for you.
Go on then.
What's the niche reason why you didn't use a tutor when you were...
Oh, do you want the reason?
Yes. Did you want the reason? Yeah. You wanted the reason?
Okay. So I come, as you can see from the name, a community of Indians. And many of you will have many Asian customers from the Asian demographic, which is you know, that's great. Education culturally is really, really important to many aspects of I'm trying to say this without saying something politically very incorrect, right? But it's very, very important culturally. When I grew up, my parents were all about education, education, education. You come home with 98%, where's the other 2%? What went wrong? You know, who got more than you? And
who got more than you?
And I love my parents, by the way. They're absolutely brilliant. And by the way, they do not treat my children that way.
Grandparents. We've discussed grandparents.
Completely different. Yeah. Don't talk to your children like that. And don't... Homework, no, they can come and play with me and stuff. What happened to you? Anyway, that's a whole other podcast. But
we should do that podcast.
But that is, why is it that you just completely do a UE when it comes to your grandkids rather than your own kids? But and you can have my parents as guests, and they won't actually be able to answer that question. But the thing is that so I come from a community, and sadly, and I am going to say sadly, when the 4+ entrance exams into that entry point in private schools in North West London was available, and then the 7+. There are some individuals across the community that my children are familiar with because we're, you know, part of a community and we know everyone, where the parents were so upset and disappointed that their children did not get into haberdashers or North London Collegiate or Highgate or Merchant Taylors at 13 or whatever it is, that they made it very known in front of their children. They're so upset and disappointed. They cancelled a birthday party. There was, you know, and because the parents were no longer in the mood and, you know, can't believe that other kid got in. That other kid's not that smart compared to my kid. You get all these sorts of responses, but said in front of the children. And so I have spent a lot of time with my own children saying that doesn't matter, right? And education is not just about the levels that you get at the end of school. What these teachers are trying to do, actually, in spite of the system, is give you this 360-degree holistic education. And you know, why do they focus on verbal and non-verbal and critical thinking and all these things? Is because they're trying to understand more about the capabilities than just simply whether you can pass an exam in maths or English and et cetera, et cetera. So I've been drumming this into my children. My own children read my book, which is hilarious because in the back of...
It's awesome. It's not hilarious,
Yeah, because in the back,
it is awesome.
Well, in the car one day, Nevie, you know, at the time she was like 10 or 11, she said, Mummy, you know, I need a job where AI is not going to replace me and I need to focus on those skills. And I stopped the car and I said, wow.
Yeah.
I said, Neve, I love your school and I love the fact you just said that to me. That's amazing. Where did you get that from? She said, your book. And I was like, oh, that's, you know, she was just sucking up to me. And so, because she wanted, like, you know, I don't know, a Pokemon set of cards or something. So the point is that I've tried to drum that into my children. Now, when it came to this occasional place, Neve came up to me. It was Neve, and she said, Mummy, I really want to go to this school. And I said, why do you want to go to this school? And she said, it was really, it's unashamedly academic, Mummy. Right, so Nevie has no issues in terms of the grades in her class, and I want to go there. My friends go there, and I really like the school. And I said, where did you get that from? She said, it's what the headmistress said on the online open day. And I was like, okay, well done for copying and pasting that phrase. And I said, okay, it's highly unlikely in an occasional place that you will get the place. You're capable, but I just want you to not get disappointed. I didn't hire a tutor. And that was a conscious decision. And I told you, I'm not going to tutor you. You've got 3 weeks to prepare for this exam, which you've not really done before. Let's go to Waterstones. And at that point, again, I just bought Bond. I bought all of the Bond books, right? And I said, I know exactly what to do for you, but you're going to have to sit down and learn yourself. I'm not going to get you a tutor. Why, Mummy? Then why can't I have a tutor? Everyone has a tutor, right? You're not going to have a tutor because at no point in your brain do I want you to think that if you don't get in, I care. Because I need to make an extreme example here.
Yeah.
The flipped opposite.
Yeah.
That if you don't get in here, Mummy and Daddy don't love you any less. And it's just because of what she had seen elsewhere and what she was immersed in elsewhere. So it was more, I knew a tutor would help her. I knew it would help her in the right way.
Yeah.
But I needed my daughter to understand, because the statistics, the probability of her getting into the school was so slim, because all of these kids are very capable, they're all bright, they're intelligent. And I also told the school, I called them and I said, I don't need her to go to your school. I don't want her to go to your school. I really like the school that she's at. And by the way, I've been on stage gushing about the former head teacher, that he's one of the best head teachers in the world, and I serve 56 countries worth of schools, so I know a lot of head teachers. I was gutted, absolutely gutted that she wanted to move. My son's still at his school, but she moved, and that's fine. She's gone to an amazing school, but I just needed her to know, Mummy it doesn't matter which one, because of the community and the influence, and I think it was really important. Now, she did get in. What it also now taught her, that I now realise, is what it takes, the input. What do you put in? The hard work that you did by yourself with books. I gave her my card. I said, go to Waterstones, buy any book you like. She came back with all the Bond books, right? Because she knows the brand, right? She knows the brand. She's like, Mummy, these are the best. I want these. They're going to get me through. They're great. They're prepared all my friends. She came back with that set. It was, funnily enough, it was that brand. That was it. But do you see the do you understand the reason?
I understand
and I know
two
which
beautiful
community.
things.
I understand which community you're from as
Yes,
well.
yeah.
And I think that there is no harm in getting a tutor. It's just you've got to understand I had 3 weeks. And the fact is that the fallout from some of the other kids not getting into their schools, the way in which those parents reacted,
It's long term.
is wrong.
Yeah.
Okay, that's wrong. None of us as parents, and interestingly, some of the parents have said they wish they hadn't.
Yeah.
Because they've seen now
It's not
what's
worth
happened. Yeah, and I just think that I had to make an extra effort. I'm no way bashing getting extra help. I felt bad. Okay, I felt really, really bad. I'll be very honest. My husband did as well. He was like, I feel really bad. We're not supporting her the way that we could by getting a tutor. It was just.
It was a different learning objective.
It was a different learning objective, and I just needed to know that I love her wholly and unconditionally. And it was more about the competitive nature of the school.
You decided not to participate in that race.
That was it, and it was just, but thanks.
And I had this goosebump moment when your daughter walked to Waterstones to buy Marion Bond's books.
Yeah.
Because we were talking earlier about learning by yourself and whether or not that's possible. But Marion Bond's legacy taught Neve.
Yeah.
And that's a very precious thing.
Isn't that wonderful? I've never thought of it that way, actually. Yeah, and it was that proactivity.
Yeah.
And see, today we're talking about, obviously there's, parents want, what do parents want, right? And if you're a tutor, you know your customer. There are various things that parents say, I would like, and then when you hear the list, it's not always about, can you focus on the holistic education? It's often about the grades, it's about the school you want to get into, it's about the university, it's about this parent's actually tutoring, so I'll do the same. And there's some of that as well. But actually tutors have a really, really important role, and they know that. A lot of them are former educators or current educators. In fact, you know what?
They're educators.
I'll tell you what, a lot of them are just teachers. They're teachers by day, data analysts by night, tutors by night. And actually...
What do they do in their spare time?
Yeah, well, this is the thing, right?
Do bond questions.
Oh,
Yeah.
on little strips of paper.
Yeah, exactly. But and so for us, it's very much about how can we empower you. But the proactivity and this skill set, what do we need these children to have when they leave school, formal education, to be competitive in the world where AI and technology is rapidly changing the nature of how we live, how we work, how we consume, how we educate, how we save, how we invest, how we pick holidays, how we binge watch television, how we do everything is becoming increasingly important. So if you can save the time and be more efficient using the tools in a good way, in the way that they were built, then you can focus on those other things. But if you are spending all of your time doing the things that actually a technology can help you do, then you're not going to have any time left. And so, again, part of this design was, and that's why the data dashboards come in, don't they? When you have those, is how can the person who's the most powerful is tutor, right?
I think your story as well about Neve is, it also comes back to there are choices of your own circumstances and your own story and your own learner's story, and making the right choices for what's right, what was right for her, what was right for you as a family. And you're so right what you said before as well around, when the learner's in that position where they've got an assessment coming up, they're going to sit a test, one in, all in, the family's in, the tutor's in, the kids are in, you're all going through this together. It's not just the learner, it's all the people in their lives around them, and how those family members react to results. It's how the learner reacts to the people around them reacting, and it's not just about a test, it's about how you prep for that psychologically, as well as prep for the questions and the test that you will encounter.
On the questions, actually, we should do this. So one thing that we did do, because obviously we were at home, she had the Bond books and then she had Century. So if there's anything you don't understand, just go on Century and learn it, right? And then go back to the Bond books and see if you can do it. So
that was before Tuesday.
This is before Tuesday. But this is the thing. This is before Tuesday. So she was doing what we have built, and I saw her doing it only So she joined the school in September last year, so September 2022.
Right.
So I could see our partnership actually as a mother interacting and how it was going to work. And actually that did shape part of the product collaboration, which is brilliant, that we were able to, that my daughter chose to do this exercise for us and be the guinea pig, if you like, as to how it would work. What I did do for her was that I went onto a live document. I won't name the company because it always sounds awful when you do, but you can use your Google Docs, you can use your Microsoft Word, word processing, live document. And I wrote down, the first page is really funny because I've shared it with lots of other parents. I don't mind sharing things with parents. I know some parents they won't tell you what they're doing. They're a bit competitive when it comes to selective entrance. But I shared it to them, and so we'll put it maybe on our, we'll find a way to, because I've done the work, I did it myself as a mother. At the first page is, Nevie, don't worry, don't worry at all. And anything that you say, just be yourself, be your authentic self, because an interview is actually finding out about you. So there's all of that in there, so she reads it. But in the doc, what I did was I prepared lots of potential interview questions, right? So all the questions that could potentially come up, just so she doesn't feel, she feels prepared. It's good to prepare. Brownie's background, be prepared. But I put those in. And, when you're preparing for the interview side of things, tutors do that too. Parents do that too. And actually, what I said, because we have a neuroscientist in-house in the company. We have neuroscience psychology, and we actually have neuroscientific layers within the artificially intelligent system, right? So the whole thing is intertwined and combined. There's a lot of expertise of neuroscience in the company and has been since it started. So I thought, I'm going to use that. I'm not going to sit there and talk to Neve at the dinner table about, what would you say if this came up? And what if you... So I put the questions down and I said, Neve, write the answers like mini essays to everything, but do it yourself. And then what I'll do is, when I get a moment, I'll read through it and I'll comment on it. So you see how it's all done written? So the idea is you're doing also the process of recall, you're kind of rehearsing what you're going to say, but you have established your main points. She's not going to repeat what she's written. No. But she'll know, if that comes up, I'm going to focus on the war, right? If that comes up, I'm going to focus on this area. My least favourite subject, I'm not going to hesitate and have to sit there and get nervous. I know exactly what... So then what I did was I commented through her answers, and why don't you draw this bit out again? Why don't you draw that bit out again? Well, did you not know that actually, in terms of the war, do you know what propaganda is? Why don't you talk about that a little bit and go and research that? So I sent her on this little, but the thing is, it was all documented because I know, obviously, a fair amount about how things will sit in her long-term memory so that on the day she'll be able to recall them and be calm. And so that's one thing that we did do, and I shared it with lots of parents because it's generic. The questions are pretty generic, but it's useful. And so it's not obviously our collaboration and partnership, but I think we'd be very happy to share that. And then obviously the idea is tutors.
You heard it here first.
And yeah, I already thought about it just now. We thought about sharing, and you talked about interviews and questions, and not just the academic side and the assessment questions, but there is always that piece as well to entrance examinations. And in the spirit of the fact that we want the impact to be positive, why not share it? We could do that.
It's probably worth also saying one of my favourite things about the platform is, as the learner's going through that experience, there are quick fire moments that are simple to do as the learner's experiencing the platform, where they have to pause for a moment and just reflect, how am I feeling about this? And the little smileys, or
the amount of emojis that we have.
Oh, I know.
But we hear them from adults as well.
I'm sure, but a sense that you can do something, and maybe you don't get, you haven't quite grasped that concept, and it's saying, how do you feel about that? And it's getting comfortable with acknowledging that sometimes when you're learning, you can feel almost like, I'm frustrated. Yeah. I thought I'd really grasp that and I haven't. And the idea with the platform, then it can say, don't worry, you're feeling frustrated, but we're going to point you back to this content so that you can really improve and challenge yourself. And then that empowerment, when you then encounter something that is the same concept, but perhaps in a different way, and you've got it, and then you're hitting that emoji.
Do you know where that came from? Do you know where that came from? It came from 9 years ago, whenever it was, 8 years ago, and it was actually the senior neuroscientist, and we sat down, and we just said we never want a child to feel stuck, because I remember being stuck at school, and it was awful.
Stuck is a very different feeling to challenged.
Yeah, you don't want to feel stuck, and
Right.
you feel stuck, and then what do? And then they give up. They just feel demotivated, and the thing is, it's the way that the content and the questions are scaffolded. It's the scaffolding of the content, and then it's how that then it's able to then differentiate. It's not line by line. There's AI. AI is, look, it's complicated, but there are ways in which you can scaffold the learning objectives and the assessment objectives, which is exactly the kind of work that we've done, which has taken so long, but it's about doing it right and then being able to differentiate. And you're right, it's all about that empowerment.
So let me reflect back what I've learned from you.
Go for it.
I've learned that timely targeted intervention is what you've created in this supercharged textbook. And that timely targeted intervention is going to create efficiencies so that the human can do what only the human can do. Right? And sometimes that's a tutor or a parent or a teacher, and sometimes that's the learner themselves.
Yeah.
But really what you're doing is you're charting a course for them that you've not snowplowed, you've not cleared all the challenge from the route, you've just made sure that there are no barriers. So there is a way through if you're willing to lean in and do the work. And for one student, that means taking the card, going to Waterstones, choosing the books, and doing the work herself. And for another student, that means just sitting down with a tutor, but actually sitting and actually engaging. And you know, as a parent, what your student needs, what the learning objective really is, because that's who we are as lead learners. So we're not saying to the students, I need you to solve all the problems of my standing in my community. It's simply, this is what you need, and this is a healthy resource that can help you get there.
Couldn't have said it better ourselves.
Perfect.
Yeah,
Perfect.
exactly.
So Priya and Helen, thank you so much.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you.
Thank you for two things. Thank you for creating this resource that's going to have the impact that you intend. And thank you for bringing tutors in this responsible way, because it means the world to us. Thank you. And
Thank you.
So much. Thanks very much.
Well done.
Thank you. Thanks, everyone. Thanks for
Thank you.
listening.